Hello all. So let me give you some context. This understanding the magic of playwright fixture is something that I presented to the Pune Test Drive meetup on June 14th, and I'm just re-recording what I talked to the great audience, and I had such a fabulous feedback for this session. So I thought I'll put up playwright fixtures tutorial in a way folks will understand its magic and can learn from the example. I have also created a shared GitHub repository that you can take a look at, and I'll be showing the example and demo throughout this video. So before even I start into this presentation and tutorial, I just wanted to talk about how difficult it was for me to choose this particular uh, topic, right? Because I was talking to the meetup group, I wasn't aware what kind of folks will turn up, whether they are in the automation or they are subject matter expertise, they have done the performance testing, security testing. So we don't know like what kind of folks will show up in the meetups. And then talking about particular tool, and then again the new upcoming tool and particular feature from the tool is something that I was a bit afraid that folks would be able to connect or not. But luckily I had a great setup, great feedback, and it was a fabulous day for me, while presenting this out. I made sure that folks who don't have a playwright background or folks who don't have uh, automation background, they should be able to relate while they learn about playwright fixtures. So that was my objective as well, right? So we will be talking about understanding the magic of playwright fixtures and how we can supercharge our test using a reusable power. So let's get going. So before we talking about why bothering fixtures, I asked the question about what they think about when they talk about automation, and the obvious response is like they talk about code reusability, they talk about framework, and then I stepped back. There was another session about AI related things, how AI will help in QA and QA can help in AI testing. So there was one world that governance and framework was used, and I used that reference to talk about why bother about fixtures. So fixture is nothing but something that we will do generally in typical framework, and framework is nothing but kind of an way that we do a particular thing so that everyone is aligned and everyone knows. And let's take an example. If we are going from one city to another city, there might be 10 different routes we can take, but as a team, as a folks who are traveling together, we decides which path we need to do and what would be the optimized way to do it, and those kind of a thing. Similarly, in the automation, there are numerous way to do the same thing because we use in a different way, use the same programming language, but how to do it, how to use design patterns, how to structure the our code base and come up with a standardized way so that anyone can do it and code would be reusable and easy to read, right? So that is what typically setup we do as part of a framework, and fixtures does what we generally tend to do within framework, right? So if we take a comparison, like if we do something in a before suite in in Java Selenium world, that is something that we likely to do with the fixtures. So fixtures provide us a dependency injection so that we can go ahead and do what we wanted to do, right? So these are the 3 points that I talked about when we talked about why bothering the fixtures, like stop repeating the login, navigation, setup in every step. So with Selenium or any other tools, we do the login every E2E test, right? So how can we use fixtures to get rid of that I explained? Then how can we increase the modularity and reusable, and obviously dry and kiss, do not repeat yourself and keep it simple, silly. So we focused on those principles when we use the fixtures, right? Fixtures also provides a great way in isolation for the test, and that also helps us gain the reliability. So the tests are, or test data or the setup is not dependent on something else. It's clearly isolated, so that way our tests are very reliable if we use the fixture. So they can run in the some context if we set up it like that, and every test gets a new kind of an environment or test data or test as you like. And then by design it's an parallel friendly. So if you are coming from the Selenium world, you might have known the pain of the static keyword that someone might have used in the legacy framework, that it's very hard to run the test in parallel because global variable declaration or static declaration has been made. But with fixtures, you get rid of all those things, and it just works. So where's the magic? We will talk about all this thing right now. The show me the code. We will go into that mode right now. So internally, Playwright inject fixtures using dependency resolution. It makes setup tear down very complex scenario easily, and then custom login fixtures inject automatically. So we will talk about example in every step. So here when I actually had in this session in the meetup, because I wanted to be interactive and not just a recorded video, I asked them how they look at the framework. So framework is nothing but way to execute your script. But before you execute your script, you need to do a lot of bootstrapping. You need to do the setup. You need to create WebDriver instances if you are using Selenium. You need to set up the report writer if you are using Extend report or Allure report, right? So you need to make sure you do that before your actually test runs, and all those things are available for your test to consume. And after test as well, you need to flush the report. If you have hold any database connection, you need to make sure you are closing that connection, so database is not overwhelming by holding the pool connections, then closing the reports, closing database connections, closing the files, and all those things, or even quitting the Swiss web driver as well, right? So all those things you do as a framework. So if we look at the things, we do three things. Like we are doing the setup, then we actually running the script, and then we are cleaning up the setup, right, as part of our framework as well. Now if we look at any test, now we talked about framework, now we if we talked about a script, in the script itself we do the setup, which might be in data setup that we need for a test. Then we actually run the test, and then we clean up the data that we might have created. So again, in the script itself, we have three steps like setup, actual script, and cleanup. And if I'll go to the example. If you have use a test, like how the test supposed to work, that it is a pattern. You arrange, you act, and you assert, right? And arranging part can be done as part of a setup. And let's go to the example and talk about this, right? So here I took an example like how fixtures can work, and I'll also show the fixtures in runtime. So this is a manual setup where you are actually creating a Chromium browser, you are creating a page, and then you are going to the source demo. I use a source demo throughout all the examples so people can relate or use this at their own machine as well, and then they can close it, right? So if you do it, you can see that running the global setup in test is running okay. I have not installed the browser. This is a fresh setup on this machine. So let me install the browser. You can see that it is getting installed. The good thing about Playwright, it provides you error and most of the time work around out of the box if you're using trace or anything else, especially within Copilot as well. It's very helpful. So let it run and get downloaded. I'm just using Chrome, so it should work out of the box, but yeah, cool. So WebKit Playwright. Let me run it now. And you can see the first result failed because we haven't had the browser, and you could see that it got executed. So all these steps got executed within like fraction of second. And let me open something that we can take a look at, right? So let me open the result so that we can take the look at the result as well. Playwright and show report. So I am opening the report, and you can see it took like a 2 seconds to do all these things, right? So Playwright has a two type of fixtures available. One is by default provided fixtures like page, browser context, right? And then there are custom fixtures as well. So we not gonna talk about default fixtures that is out of the box available for us. We will talk about the custom fixtures throughout this example, but I just wanted to make that distinctions right away. So here we have not used any fixtures, and we here in this example we use page as in fixtures, and here you can see this all this creating browser, launching page, and closing, we have to do it manually. But with the built-in fixtures, we can do the same test right away. And so test has been run, and I'll just reload the page that we have earlier in place. I'll just duplicate it and all, and you can see that it took like 9.5, not even 1 second, right? So if we are doing it with manually, you can see that execution time is going up, and then number of lines is also going up in the code, right? But if we are using the fixtures, the code looks like very readable, right? So here I given a bad example, manually launching the browser bar and the fixtures using the default fixtures provided to us. And then I went ahead and talked about, how can we use this magic, and this example that I talked about, this using login state as a fixture. And then there is an example. So without fixture, the test would look like this, right? So I'm navigating, I'm logging to the page and then checking the products, and then there are these tests that I have written, and you can take a look at this test. And then you can see on every test I have this particular 4 lines repeated, because I'm say doing the same login code, repeated it again, right? I have not done the refactoring, and obviously we can do that using a page object model. And we can also see, going ahead, how can we use fixtures in the page object model. But let me run, like, if you don't use fixtures and you just custom fixtures, how would it look like? And you saw that 4 tests ran, and let me go back to the result and let me refresh it. Okay, let me get rid of the test ID, because test ID would be different. So you saw like it took like in 4.6 seconds to run all the tests, and all worked exactly fine. So this test is good, right? And I talked about another thing, all the test will have act as, a pattern, arrange, act, asset. Here we are arranging, we are going to the page, then we are doing actual test. And if we wanted to do some, thing, so all these things, arrange, act, logging, you are logging in, you are, here you are verifying something, so you are clicking on particular product, add to the cart, and then you are verifying whether contents cart text is increased or not. Similarly, you are, doing all these things. So all test default performs, follow this arrange, act, asset pattern. So that I have established while giving this example. And now with the fixtures, how would this look like, right? So here is how I defined these fixtures, and you can take a look at the code. The code is available on the GitHub, in this particular in the description, so you can take a look at that later if you like. So this is how I have set up the authenticated page. So now I am saying that I have wrote an auth fixtures where I have multiple pages, standard pictures, authenticated pages, standard pages, and problem user page, and all those I have initialized in this custom fixtures that I have created. How do we create a custom fixtures? There is a syntax. You can extend whatever the default test from the playwright. Obviously you can't use test as the same name to assign it, so you will import it as some different name and extend that behavior of some type that you define. So I have defined the type here, and then obviously all these pages of a type I have, use this method and wrote it out. So standard is like do the setup, use it, and then if you want to clean up, it will clean up. But because I am relying on the default fixture page, so I don't have to do the cleanup manually. But if I want, I can do the cleanup here as well, right, after the use. So this is where actually, fixtures gets into the play. So this is the setup, what needs to be done before, like a setup step, and the fixtures, and then you do the optional cleanup thing. So we talked about the example, and now let's see the same test that we have seen. So we have seen this test without fixtures or without hooks, and then look at this test now. No login code needed, already authenticated. And here, instead of using page, I'm using authenticated page, and the test looks like it's very simple. And my intention of, what I'm doing in the test, it's very very visible, very readable. So I am not repeating any code using the fixtures here, and this is how we can use authenticated pages. Like authenticated page located title contains product, simple as that. So let me run this using a fixtures, and code is getting run, as you could see. And you will be able to see this on your screen as well. I am using multiple screens, so things are not being displayed over here. So okay, logout functionality, I'm not gonna worry about it, so I'll just stop it and I'll go back and see it. Like it's been like a while I have repeated loaded the code, so it might be the issue with particular test case which I have not verified. So problem user test is gonna fail, because let it fail, and you can see this test took like most of the time, but other tests were extremely fast and just works, right? So that is how fixtures will come into the picture and will help you with an authenticated step. I shown here one example analysis. I have not done this analysis for other examples, but only for this example where I talked about, earlier you had 6 lines of code, hard to test, different user type, and then test if break-ins, if login flow changes in the login flow, I have to make changes in like 10 different places because I'm not reusing same code. I'm putting the same code again and again in the test. So that is been taken care. Then set up code obscure test intent. Obviously, right? The test intent is here, but I have to do this at every test, and then like 20 lines of a code duplicated in the whole script, and then you can see the benefit, right? 0 line of a code, focus, and then so 85% of a reduction rate test. Maintainability, you would be able to maintain if something goes wrong in the login. Clarity is there, flexibility is there, right? So that's the benefit and power of using fixtures, and this is the one example that I talked about. And because code was very easily readable, people can see importance of dry and how we are keeping it simple in action. Then I talked about if what if we need data in our test, like if login is something, but again if we go ahead and add, don't use page object model, just use record and playback and don't use fixtures, this test goes ahead. Like now here I'm using an data like John Doe and all those things, and it becomes different person, different ID, and the test is not readable, it's not gonna be maintainable. The data is hard coded. Every time if something changes in some kind of a setup, I need to do those things manually. So like that is again hard thing. So again I wrote on fixture for it. I shown them fixture that okay, we have this authenticated page, I have customer data, another type upon fixture. So this data fixtures where I have this customer data and this page, authenticated page, and then we have product data. So there were two types of data that I was using. One was in product and one is an user. So let me show that in the test. So here you can see this is an user data, and then there were cases where I was using an product data as well. So I wanted to make sure some kind of a product data is, if I needed, I can have that in place. So I created this fixture where I'll have this customer data, I'll have this product data like backpack, bike list, and so I have different type of product test data in place. And similarly I am creating them, I'm defined the type, and here I'm creating the customer data dynamically. So every time run this, I'm using random ID generated using math. I'm creating random emails and random ID and full name, and then I'm just putting in the log, and then I'm actually using this customer. And then after done it, I'm just saying it cleanup. There is no cleanup needed because I'm randomly created. But if I'm accessing database, I can just mark like this particular entity is used in the automation, so that you don't have the same data again. Authenticated page, clearly what we have seen earlier. And then product data, I'm just creating something that we have created earlier, and that's pretty much it, right? So I have created test data, and now the test that used to look like this will look like this, where we have this customer data we are using here as a customer data, as an custom fixtures product test data, and the code is like very clean, and it actually works as you could see, and it's very clean to read, maintain this kind of a test. If something is goes wrong, you can just make changes into the fixtures and it will work, right? So product filters, I don't have to make changes at like 10 different test cases because products are related, something had changed, I can just use the fixture and get away with that. So let me show the result of this run, and you will get idea what I'm talking about. And you can see you know the amount of time take, it's like only 5, not even 5 seconds. And that's like how we can use so data fixtures in our test. And then I talked about one, like, and if go ahead POM, we talked about authentication in some way but not elegantly or focusing on the POM. So I gave another example where we talked about how we will do the POM as a fixture as well. And I ran this example. Take a look, try to understand what I did. This code is available on the GitHub, and it will make much more sense, if we read it. So all these tests actually passing over here. It's not getting displayed because of multi-screen, But let me go and show the results, because you can see these form fixtures and you can see like login with credentials and all this that I am running. And how does it look code wise? So let me go and open it. This is how it looks. And then again, the fixtures is coming into the page where I have created on page object fixtures, where different pages I have been defined over here. And what are the authenticated pages? So you can mention authenticated pages and non-authenticated pages, and then you are just creating a page object over here, like login page, going to the login page using login page, similarly inventory page. And you are relying on the default fixture page, so your code looks clean. Authenticated pages, again, like very similar to what we can do. Take a look. And then uh, I created a page object, so the code looks clean for all these pages. And yeah, and then this is how our test looks. And this is how our test supposed to look, but I can't just go and show this. But so I have to walk them through how fixture supposed to work and how things are there. And we use couple of example where we actually use it. So fixtures, login page, inventory page. You can use your page manager as well if you wanted to go ahead create something like that and use in your code. So you don't have to do, if you are dealing with 10 pages, you don't have to define 10 pages in here. And code looks so clean, test intent is very clear, complete checkout process, adding page to the cart, going to the cart, process checkout, fill in the form, expect checkout summary, and then that's it. And let me run this. The code. Okay, so code is running over here. You can see, yeah, and it just it's so elegant, the fixtures. And you can see all those tests, even more tests I wrote in the fixtures, and you can see it is working fine. Yeah, so that is what I presented. I got very good feedback. Because I'm on video, it is not interacting, but the session was very interacting. I thoroughly enjoyed talking about it. Mutually shared state across test, common pitfalls. So we have to make fixtures stateless so that it will be easy. Don't add too much logic. Just think about what would my test would need, what would be my setup for the test, and is that a common, is it getting replicated across multiple scripts and flows, and then that only add it. And make sure you tear down the resources, otherwise it will leak the memory. So if you are using database connection, make sure you closing those connection and those kind of a thing. So that is what I had for today's. Take a look at the fixtures. The code is available over here on my personal repo. You will enjoy playing around with fixtures. Thank you for checking out this video.